everybody, and thank you very much for watching. Today, I have a very special guest, a veteran of 85 professional boxing fights. This man, Brett Fidoe, the threat, has been in there with the best of the best of the best. He's been in there with Charlie Edwards, Sonny Edwards, Jay Harris, Sean McGoldrick, Dennis McCann, Thomas Isamba. There's so many names that he shared a ring with, and I'm actually going to show our audience because he's been in there. There's so many top names. I've actually got a list here, and I just rattled off a few there. Coming off a very big win over Tyrone McCullough, who was a former European champion. Brett defeated him in his last fight. He's fresh off that win. And today we're going to be having a chat about Brett's life, his career, mentality for fights, what's motivated him to be a true road warrior. As I say, 85 fights, you did hear it right. So we're going to be having a chat about his amazing career. Champ, like I said just now, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and big respect for that.
Well, thank you very much for that, pal.
No worries at all. All right then, so let's get right into it. I mean, you're coming off a fantastic win over a former European champion. Okay, now I want to just talk about this a little bit because obviously the fight before that, you beat another guy who I believe was making his debut as well. Just to give him a mention, John Patrick Harker, I believe. Now,
yes.
I want to talk about these couple of things. You know, you go on these winning streaks for periods of time, particularly with the Tyrone fight, beating a former European champion. What are your reflections on the fight? Obviously, it's all happened quite recently. I don't have one super specific question, but just anything you'd like to share on how it feels beating a guy like that.
Well, to be honest, obviously without being disrespectful, when we got offered this fight, I knew I could beat him. I've watched him box a few times, and he don't like being put under pressure, and he's on a back foot fighter. And I knew I could beat him, but to be honest, I didn't fancy it because I knew he's very skillful and quick and sharp. And to be honest, I wasn't my fittest, and I thought, well, I don't want that. You know what I mean? It'd be a hard night's work. So anyhow, we said no first for that fight, and then obviously one thing led to another. Lee got back in contact, and we agreed to take the fight. And yeah, like I knew I could beat him all along, but I was quite nervous going into the fight. But when I got into the hotel, into the bubble, I don't know why, but the more I've seen of him, I got more confidence. I thought, well, I can beat this kid now. I'm going to do it. And I just, over them 3 days, I just got more confidence in myself. And like I said, May obviously we weighed in and so on. And come fight night, obviously it was a quick game plan. We didn't think of it. It was on the night, a game plan on the night. Me and John come up with a game plan, and it worked to the T. And but I had that little belief in me that I could beat him anyway. And
okay.
I just done it.
Yeah, the rest is history, as they say in moments.
Yeah,
like that.
of course.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, he's a good kid, nice and sharp, but I just think I had his number on that night.
Yeah.
I believed anyhow.
No, you believed it beforehand, the confidence. Yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, that's the things, again, the fans don't see, isn't it? Like what we were saying just now, they just see the fight, but how you were going into it makes a lot of sense. All right, cool. Now, another thing here is it was only a few fights ago that obviously you fought Dennis McCann at your hall. Now, I want to touch on this one a little bit because if I remember correctly, I actually messaged you after the fight, and you actually said, I'm feeling all right, even though it was a stoppage. I think you said, you might not remember this, but I think you actually said to me I could just go again, and things like that. But with Dennis McCann, obviously he's a rising star. He's got a lot of exposure, and a lot of people think he'll go a long way and everything like that. Again, your reflections on fighting him. I know this one was a loss, but still stepping in with a great up-and-coming name. And he seemed to be a heavy hitter. Let's start there. I mean, how hard hitting was he really?
I knew how good he was going into this fight. Obviously, we took this at I think it was 2 or 3 days notice. Obviously, he had a few opponents pull out, and obviously nobody else, because obviously COVID. Couldn't get nobody else in time except me. So we took it 2 or 3 days notice. And obviously I actually know Dennis. You know what I mean? Like on a not. I don't know him like very very well, but he used to hang around with cousins of mine. He used to come and visit down there where I used to live. So
Yeah.
I've seen him and I know of him, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know how good he was in that. And they all said he was quite strong in this, that, and the other. I know it was only 2 rounds, but it was like he never, apart from that body shot, which was straight in the solar plex, and there's nothing I could have done about that. You know what I mean? Nor anybody else for that matter.
No.
He didn't really hit me with any other shot. It was a punch perfect shot straight in the solar plexus. Obviously, I was coming in, and obviously I was breathing at the time, so he just hit me and just took me breath completely out of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But having said that, he looks strong. You know, and I've seen him fight before, like a few fights, and he feels like he's got a bit of power. But that night, apart from that body shot, didn't really feel much more power off him.
Makes sense. Makes complete sense. I got to touch on something else there, even though we've, I mean, I did say that we might move around in time a little bit here, so we'll do that. Now, obviously, you mentioned him knowing cousins of yours and things like that, and I'm aware that obviously Ernie and Billy Smith, I believe, were cousins of yours. You know, God rest both of them, absolute incredible fighters. And I never met them, but I followed their careers. I got a lot of respect for them. I want to talk, just jump back in time a little bit, even though we've started with the present day, and talk about your boxing background. Were they inspirations of yours to box in the very beginning, or was there someone else that sort of initially inspired you to box going back? You know, because I know you boxed for a bit and then you quit for a while and you came back. But if we go back to like the very early sort of time where you thought, I want to do that, as soon as you mentioned it with Dennis and obviously the community and the traveling community and all that, I want to go back there a little bit and touch on Ernie and Billy, if that's all right with you, out of respect for them and anyone
That's
else that
fine, mate.
inspired you, anyone else that inspired you at that time.
Obviously, I've always, you know, what I mean, I've always liked boxing. Like I boxed from a very young age. I think I was 12. I think I was 13 when I had my first ever amateur fight. So I've always been around boxers, like obviously family and so on. And you probably know Billy Smith, God rest his soul. 2 twins have passed away now. And I can remember I was about 14, maybe 15, and I met Billy Smith. Obviously, we know him because family and everything. And he took me to Howard Johnson's gym in Wednesbury, BCB.
Okay.
He took me, and I was the first professional boxing gym I ever went to. And I only went twice. But yeah, he took me there, and like I said, I loved it. Just being in, it's totally different. See, professional boxing and training is totally different to the amateur training. I never really liked the amateur training. It was always nitty gritty stuff for me, you know what I mean? Like get in and have a good training session. And yeah, so the first professional gym he took me to, I loved it, like, you know, BCB and that. And then obviously I did stop for a bit. But then I come back into the pro game when I think I was 20, and I met Scott Lawton. From Stoke-on-Trent, I met Scott, and we was just talking, just having a chat, and he said, just come down the gym and just come and do some training. And it just went from there, really. Went down just to get fit, do a bit of training, but then obviously I enjoyed it again. And we was had a chat, and he said, how about turning pro? He said, because, you know, you're good enough, and just went from there.
Yeah. I went from there. Okay, cool. Very cool. I love it. Yeah, and like I say, I love to go back to the beginning, and I know I keep saying this, but I love to show what the fans don't always see just from watching the fights. Now, another thing here, some of the guys that you fought, and I know we're talking about specific fights, and there's too many fights to talk about them all, so that's why I've just picked a handful, obviously, you know, because there are too many. But obviously, in the intro, I forgot to mention, obviously, you're fighting Amir Khan's brother as well. Obviously fighting Andrew Selby. I mean, there's so many guys. Now, I've got to give a mention to, I'm going to rattle off a couple, all right? And we'll just give a quick reflection on the fights. It doesn't have to be too much, but if anything you remember. Now, obviously, Andrew Selby is a good mate of mine, and his brother Lee as well. And actually, Lee helped me a lot actually when I first got into boxing. So if you're watching this, Lee, big respect as always. But yeah, I got to give Andrew a quick mention as well. Fighting him. Same question. I mean, you've noticed by now I don't ask really narrow questions about this round or this thing because obviously you were the one in the ring with him, not me. So you're the one who has the memories. So that's why I ask it sort of open-ended. But yeah, I mean, fighting Andrew. What do you remember about that? What would you like to share about that one?
Well, what I don't remember, just getting it from every angle, mate. Shots was flying in. I just couldn't get away. Do you know what I mean? He's very, 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 very good. Obviously, I don't know if he lives the life, but back then he was just too fast, too sharp. Just, well, there's not much else to say about him. He was just quality.
Yeah. It is amazing when I've seen his fights. So I was saying that even when I've been in the gym and seen him spar or work the bag or anything like that, like just the speed, the angles he gets to, just honestly, man, he's so talented. He is, yeah, he's an incredible talent. And yeah, the lifestyle. I mean, we won't go into that now, but he is such a talented lad. So, all right, so another one then, as soon as I mentioned, because I'm just going to rattle off a few key fights, and then we'll get into some other things, the mental side and other stuff. There's a few fights I want to go into. So couple of obviously Welsh lads, obviously that I know, so I'm just mentioning those. But Jay Harris is another one. Now, I was actually there for your fight with Jay Harris at the Vale Arena. I think that was the second time you fought him, if I'm not mistaken. But I think it was anyway. Going back a couple of years. But yeah, your fights with Jay Harris anyway. I mean, obviously he's gone on to challenge for the world title, win European, win Commonwealth, do all these amazing things.
Cool.
Thoughts about him?
He's very strong, very strong. Again, he's another quality opposition. You know what I mean? He has got to be one of the strongest I've actually fought. He can hit. He got heavy hands. You know what I mean? And again, he's just a nice kid, and I just wish him all the best. He's unfortunate in his last fight, but I watched it, and it was a very close fight up until the stoppage. But them body shots, mate, once you get it, it's not much recovering from them.
Yeah, I feel you on that. All right then. Obviously Sean McGoldrick. I've got to give a mention to him. Commonwealth Games gold medalist. Another guy I've been around his training, around some of his fights and all that sort of thing. Got to give a quick mention to him and his skill set. Anything you'd like to say about that one?
When I got that fight with Sean, I can remember. I think it was in Manchester. I fought him. I think. And when I got the call, he was the most recent one, just leaving the GB squad, I think. So I knew a bit about him, and obviously he got the bronze medal. And I was quite nervous going into that because I don't. He's a very good kid. You know what I mean? So. And again, he is strong. He's got a good. He hit me with a couple of body shots left to the body, and like very strong. But having said that, I think I'd beat him now. I'd think if we had a good 6-7 weeks training camp, I think I'd beat him now. But having said that, he is a very good kid as well. They've all been good kids who are fought. You know what I mean? They haven't been no mugs.
Yeah. I love the respect that you show for them as well, by the way, champ, just to get that in there, because I know, that's a really good thing, especially in this day and age when it's all this trash talk and the rubbish that goes on.
Listen, I'm not for one mate to say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, or I'm not in there to hurt them. Do you know what I mean? I'm in there just to get me money and get home. Keep myself safe, and obviously hopefully, all bless the Lord, they get safe. You know what I mean? That's all. Whoever steps for the ropes deserves respect, mate.
Oh yeah, big time. It's anyone that steps in. I always say, even with guys like where you beat guys who are making their debut, or even obviously the losses you've had against guys of all levels. I mean, they all deserve respect. Every single person. I'm big on that. But I just wanted to highlight that because your attitude to your opponents is great. I think, and I think it's a great credit to the sport, and don't mind me saying so. And to be honest, I mean, saying that, when you do get around a lot of lads are like that. I mean, a lot of lads have good respect for each other and all that. But it is nice to see in this day and age when all this trash talking and all this stuff is so big. But so I just wanted to highlight that one. Other fights we can talk. Well, we've got to talk about the Edwards brothers, haven't we? I mean, I can't. We get on to some other things now, but I can't leave those guys out. I'm going to lump them together because obviously they're both been very, very successful. I know you fought them at different times. Out to Charlie Edwards, Sonny Edwards, who was the more technically skilled individual, or would you say, they're about equal, or anything you'd like to say on those two fights?
Now, for me, Sonny Edwards is more skillful.
Hmm.
A lot better than his brother Charlie. But having said that, Charlie is obviously he's a good kid himself, But Sonny's just on a different level, I think, myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that as well. I mean, obviously they're both incredible talents, but because you shared a ring with both of them, you can see the thing. Now, another fight, because I want to get past some of the specific fights and get to a few other things, okay? And there's so many guys in here that I know when they watch this interview, they're probably going to say, "Oh, where is it?" But honestly, I mean, we've got Louis Lin. I got mentioned Thomas Isomba. He's a great talent. Jack Daniel. I mean, there's so many. Everyone you shared a ring with deserves respect. I'm just actually looking through this. Oh, Mark Leach, if I know him. Oh, mate, there's too many to talk about today, but every one of them deserves respect. So the last specific one I'm going to talk about, the last specific one is obviously Amir Khan's brother. I've got to give a quick mention to that, Haroon. I mean, obviously fighting a guy like that. Again, anything you'd like to say on that? Because in boxing, sometimes you do find the brothers, obviously, they're less talented than their more famous siblings, and sometimes they're equally as talented and what have you. But it's the same thing. I don't have a really narrow question. I know I keep saying that, but you were the one in the ring with him. Amir Khan's brother, what do you remember about that in terms of the fight, but also in terms of the occasion itself, fighting the brother of a super famous person?
Yeah. Yeah, it was obviously, again, I was obviously being his brother Amir Khan, I was quite nervous. Plus, that was my first ever fight on TV. You know what I mean? Like, it was my first ever fight. So then that itself, I was nervous, like people watching me, you know what I mean? But he was nowhere near as good as his brother. And I only boxed him over a 4-rounder. But a 4-rounder for me is no good. You know what I mean? I need 6 or 8 rounds because I warm into the fight, and I didn't win the fight. He beat me, fair enough. You know what I mean? He beat me. But if it had been a 6-round, it would have been a different situation. But obviously it was his debut, so it was a 4-rounder.
4-rounder, yeah, makes sense. All right, then. Well, I think we can talk about a few other things. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's loads of other fights I'd love to talk about because it's like Robbie Turley. I know him, great talent. I just have a look here, Lewis Norman. Oh, and Prince Purcell as well. I forgot about that one because obviously he's gone on to do some good stuff. Ashley Lane. Shout out Ashley if you're watching this as well. He's a great lad. Bobby Jenkins. Because I'm a boxing fan first and foremost, even though I work in boxing. So I'm basically dribbling over this record here because honestly, some of the names you've been in with are just quality. But anyway, we'll be here all day if we talk about that. So I want to move to another thing. Earlier on, you mentioned being a little bit nervous before a particular fight. Now, the mental side of boxing is something that's always sort of fascinated me because obviously the physical side is essential, but I would say a big part of the game is mental as well, and that really comes into it. So when you're on a run up to a fight, do you feel nerves? Do you feel pressure or anything like that, or are you quite chilled out, or does it depend? What do you go through?
To be honest, I'm a quite chilled, laid back guy, But obviously, I don't know what it is, but certain fights I do get nervous for. But when I get nervous, like my manager John Pegg always says, ask me, am I nervous? If I'm nervous, he says that's good. He said because when you're nervous, I perform better. I don't. He could possibly say that, of course. But yeah, I'm a quite normal, chilled out lad, like But it's just some fights I get nervous for. I don't know why, to be honest, but I think that's a good thing. Because it gets you more on your toes, more on your wits about the opponent. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes, you shall. Yeah, yeah. I get you. I get you. It's not always a bad thing. I've heard other trainers say that as well. I mean, I can't speak personally. I'd probably be very nervous. But seeing as you're seasoned and all that sort of stuff as a vet, proper veteran of the sport now, again, it's interesting to hear what people don't always see. Um, Another side of this now, I've got a few sort of boxing trivia questions, if you will, out of all of your fights. Okay, so these are the ones where we're looking at like the hardest hitter or the most technically skilled or what have you, anything like that. So, but before we get into all of that stuff, I got to get to one other thing. Now, and there's only a few more questions, by the way, because of people's attention spans. Obviously, I don't want it to be a super long interview, but um, obviously you challenged a number of titles as well, and obviously that's got to be mentioned. You challenged for some good belts, and you've accomplished a lot. You fought on TV, you fought around the country, all these big names. I mean, you've accomplished a lot. So, in your own estimation, I know you say that you go and you get your money and you're on your way home and all that, and I respect that, obviously. But there's got to be something that you're the most proud of personally. And what I mean by that is if you think of all the fights that you've had or the locations you've fought, maybe there's a particular fight or maybe there's a particular location or maybe it's challenging for the belt. I'm not sure, but in your own words, what are you most proud of so far in your career?
Yeah, well, one of the things is obviously my fight last week. That's a big achievement. You know what I mean? Well, say a big achievement. Obviously, I knew I could beat that kid. So he was supposed to box me and obviously win me and go on to bigger and better things. And but I knew I could beat him, so I'm in that sort of level. You know what I mean? And but having said that, boxing's took me where to places where I wouldn't even go and visit. You know what I mean? And it's been lovely, mate. To be honest, it's took me up, and I know I haven't been to other countries, but it's took me up and down England, took me down UK, and places I would never visit. I've been to,
Yeah, yeah, the
and
challenge.
obviously just the boxing side of it. Some fights I've won that I was never supposed to win. People like obviously underestimate me and stuff, so but I just love boxing in general.
That's a good answer. I love asking that question because I've asked that question of so many people, world champions and European champions and Olympians, and you never get the answer that you think you're going to get. It's always a good answer, but it's never the answer. So I love asking that question. So another one here to sort of touch on is a couple of boxing trivia ones. Out of all the people you faced, as the last couple of questions now, hardest hitter. I mean, out of all of the, I know you said that JR's got heavy hands and all that, but because you obviously not being stopped much, you don't seem to even be hurt much, even with all these fights, actually. I got to say. But still, you've probably been in there with some heavy hitters. So out of them, who would you say is maybe the one or two hardest hitting guys?
Like, or just because we're small, just because we're in a small weight, it doesn't mean we can't give a punch. You know what I mean? We're all super strong. But the one who actually can bang is Thomas Asomba. I can remember boxing him up in Sunderland before he moved down this area. He was up in Sunderland. I boxed him, and I think it was the third round. He hit me with a white cross, straight across there, and I was like, "Geez," I was glad to get through the fight. You know what I mean? We done a 6 rounder. I honestly thought in my own mind he was going to stop me because I've never been hit so hard. He can bang.
Thomas Asomba. There we are. Shouts out, champ Thomas Asomba, if you're watching this. Big respect as well. Now, another one. Obviously, you've been in with a lot of technically skilled guys, and I know we mentioned with Andrew earlier getting hit from every angle on his hands, just being like a flash and all that. But again, it's the same question. You've been in with a lot of technically skilled guys, so this one might be too big of an answer. I don't know, because you might just say there's like 20 guys or something. But if you had to think of, maybe again one or two who's like the most technically skilled, just the most, skilled of pure boxing, hit and don't get hit, the angles, the speed and all that. Who comes to mind for that one?
Sonny Edwards, mate.
I thought it
Sonny
might be.
Edwards.
Yeah.
that I have boxed a lot of technical boxers, but the one that sticks out to me is Sonny Edwards. He's unbelievable. You know what I mean? He's just, you can't touch him, to be honest, mate. You know what I mean? He's just here, there, and he's so fit as well.
Yeah. I thought it might be, but you never assume. That's why I love. That's why I love asking the question. All right. So the last couple of things then, because we've touched on a lot here. Obviously, you're coming off this win over former European champion and all that. So we've got to look to the future now. I mean, we've spent a while looking at the past. Obviously, 85 fights, and you keep very busy. What are you looking at next? I mean, because you sort of leverage yourself now into a good position. I'd say, obviously, with this win, well, with 2 back-to-back wins as well. But what would you say? What would you say you're sort of aiming for from here? What can we expect to see from the threat in the future now?
Well, mate, to be honest, obviously, I don't really want to do any more 4 and 6 rounders. You know, I'm a long distance fighter, so I want to try and get, you know, a title shot of some sort. What it is, I'm not really fussed. I'll settle for Midlands. I'm not greedy. You know what I mean? All it is now, mate, is it's like I said, it's just getting possibly a Midlands or, you know, or an English, just for my 2 lads before I retire, mate. That's all. You know, I don't want to say I'm going to do this and do that. I'll settle for one of them. You know, just my 2 lads.
Yeah, very humble.
But I think the English would probably come before the Midlands because there's nobody in the Midlands to fight me now. And to be honest, I beat most of them. So
yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I beat most of them. Well, my weight anyway.
Yeah, your weight. Yeah, you definitely have, you know, basically cleared out the division. And I know there's more lads coming through, but you fought so many of them. I can get my head around that. Well, champ, I mean, the last thing that I always ask people, because we've covered a lot here, is obviously what you would say to your fans and supporters. Because one of the things that, you know, I want to do with this is for the fans to get to know you that little bit better. And they've got an insight. And I know there's a lot more to you as a person, even than we can even get into today as well. And there's a lot more fights that we can get into. But I hope it's given them, you know, a bit more of an insight into who you are and all that sort of thing. But for the people watching this who supported you in your career, whether it's family, friends, whether it's fans, you know, from around the country or whatnot, what would you sort of say to those people watching this, if you could say anything to them?
Mate, I'm just glad of the people supporting me, really. Even though if they don't, you know, if I don't do many tickets, just going to shows and people recognizing me, that's just an achievement in itself. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I can give the fans some good fights.
Well, you sure do that, champ. I mean, you're always exciting, you know, win, lose or draw. And I'm not just saying that. That's why you might have noticed over recent years, I always try and message you after a big win or whatever, say well done, because your fights are always exciting. But honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure today. It's been longer than what I said, so sorry about that. But it's been really good. We've got into some really good material here, and I definitely think it gives the fans a good insight into who you are. So I just want to say, obviously, big thanks and big respect.
Of course, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.